Hey everyone, welcome back to Purple Nuna Podcast. I'm Stephanie Conti, and I am here with the Flip Zimmerman to my Ron Stallworth, Savanna Lanause.
I'm honored. Thank you.
How you doing, Savanna? How you doing this fine day?
I'm excited to talk about this movie. What about you, Steph?
I'm very excited too. We actually saw this movie together.
That's why it's special.
When it first came out. Oh man, so this film came out in 2017, right?
I think 18. Because
remember
we went with Paulo and Zach too.
Oh my God, it was like our double date before me and Zach started dating. Wow.
And we saw it at City Walk.
City Walk. Yeah, oh man. I miss movie theaters so much. But more so, I miss like the dine-in movie theaters, you know?
Gosh, yes.
I just want some, like, the best place, I don't know if whoever is listening, you guys have one of these movie theaters. Sinopolis. Oh my God.
A fan favorite.
With their Asian Thai tacos. Who eats that during a movie? Me. I eat that during a movie, and it's so good.
They really do have pretty good food. They do.
Yeah, so like I said, Sinopolis is kind of like known as like a luxury, you know, theater. And it's a little bit on the it's definitely a little bit on the pricier side, but the food and the oh my God, the milkshakes. Do you remember them thick cookies and cream milkshakes?
Yeah. Yes.
Sinopolis representatives, if you're listening, guys, we love you. We go to the really one in Winter Garden. So shout out to us, you know? We'll plug it in, whatever you may need. But yeah, I totally, like, it's now at a point where, because the world is opening up, but not me. I'm still at home. I'm still in my little room. The farthest I've gone out into civilization is going through the drive-thru of Starbucks. That's it.
I know movie theaters, at least in Florida, are going to be opening up very, very soon.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm tempted for Sinopolis. I don't know if I'll be going to any of the bigger brands just because of the amount of people. And Sinopolis theaters are usually very, like, smaller. So less people.
And Sinopolis is like you're grouped into two. So like if you and your husband were to go, it would be you and your husband sitting next to each other. So that's one of the nice things about Sinopolis. I mean, nice in terms of like how it is a good setup for today's climate and everything.
Yeah, we support all movie theaters. No discrimination. I love them all.
Yeah, but I mean, Sinopolis is like top tier.
Special place in our hearts, for sure.
Top tier. What was the last movie we saw there?
The last movie I saw there was Onward Together. The only one I can remember was It Too. And
It Too.
Yeah, I think, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I know we saw there.
Yep, that was the last one. That because I just put up. So I was going through some movie tickets that I have because I collect my movie tickets and I keep them. And I put up 2. I have like a new little cork board. I put 2 up. One of them is Interstellar that I saw at my local movie theater on November 7th, 2014. I'm still surprised that movie ticket is in pristine condition because all my other movie tickets have faded.
Same.
But that one is like pristine, so I had to put it up. And then I have the movie ticket to my first R-rated movie. Can you guess what that is, Savanna?
Ooh, so we had to be, what, 17? Is that the age?
No. This one was the only one my parents snuck me into.
Oh.
And it was in 2011. 2011 was when I first saw my first R-rated movie.
Hold on.
And it just so happened to be in a theater.
Oh, 2011. What came out 2011? Was it, give me a genre.
Horror.
I don't know. I don't remember any horror movies. Because my first thing was 2011 Inception, but I'm like, I don't think that was rated R. So
no, it wasn't rated R.
What was it?
It was The Thing, the 2011 version.
Oh, I didn't know that came out that year.
That was my first ever horror movie. So, and it's completely faded. The ticket is so faded. I shouldn't hang it up because I'm at a point where I'm like, I don't know if it has mold on it or what, but it's an achievement for me that baby's up there. I mean, look, to be fair, I love the original 1982 The Thing. This one was good. It was good. I commend, the director and everyone on it for giving me such a great, experience, having that be my first R-rated film. But yeah, so that's the oldest, as of right now, film ticket that I have. Because I that was like the first one I collected, because I was like, my first R-rated movie. And that was worth celebrating.
I still have a few. I have, I think, the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood one. I have Parasite for sure. And then I saved the last movie I saw in theaters, which was Lady of a Portrait on Fire.
I was going through and I remembered all of them, except I saw one for like a Dumb and Dumber sequel. And I'm like, when the hell did I watch this? I don't remember this even being made. So I had that ticket. Don't know why I kept that ticket. No offense to any Dumb and Dumber fans. It's just not my cup of tea, not my forte. But that was the one that I was like, I don't remember this movie existing.
I think we all have those movies that we forgot we saw, for sure.
For sure. There's just some movies that are like so bad that you can never forget, though. For me, it was like a Judy Blume. Like, I think it was like Judy Blume in the Not So Bummer Summer. Oh my God. That was the worst movie experience I've ever had in my lifetime. And I don't think I will have it even more, because it was the dumbest thing I've ever saw. And I saw it because I was with a friend who was much younger than me at the time. I think I was like maybe 13, 14, and she was like 10. She was like a neighbor of mine, and we saw it together, and she thought it was like the best of the best thing in the world. And the first 2 minutes, I was like, I want to be out of here. Take me out. Someone just abduct me right now. Get me out of this theater. It was such an awful experience.
I don't even remember a movie like that coming. Maybe when we were younger.
You're lucky, because that's embedded in my brain. Like, I will pass knowing, why did I waste those 3 hours watching Judy Blume? Like, that's how bad it is.
So the most, I think, uncomfortable experience I had is when we saw Midsommar.
Yeah, that was...
Dude, the whole experience was just like, the lights went out twice. I remember that. And then that one scene where we were all just looking at each other for 15 minutes. At least. It felt like 15 minutes. I don't know if it actually was.
Oh my God, yeah. The movie theater had like technical difficulties. Like, didn't it like putz out? We didn't think like, and it was awful because it putz out. Spoiler, we didn't really care for the movie that much. But to the point where we were like, yeah, keep going. It putzed out for 15 minutes. And then the minute it came back on, from there on, we couldn't stand what happened. We were like, did they switch out the movies? Like, we thought we were in some conspiracy theory where we're like, they switched out the films. It was so good at first. Now it's just awful.
It was very uncomfortable. We went with a good amount of people. I remember we went with a good amount of people. And
a good amount of people did not like us that night. That's for sure.
I mean, in our defense, how we were supposed to know.
That's true. That's very, very true. But all right, so Savanna, why don't you introduce today's movie to us? Give us a little synopsis, guys, and all that good stuff.
So today we are reviewing BlacKkKlansman, directed by Spike Lee, of course.
Spike Lee week.
And it's about Ron Stallworth, an African-American police officer from Colorado Springs, successfully manages to infiltrate the local Ku Klux Klan branch with the help of a Jewish surrogate who eventually becomes its leader. And it's based on actual events. It stars, John David Washington, Adam Driver, Laura, I believe it's Harrier, and Topher Grace.
All right. So, Savanna, thoughts?
Fantastic movie. Probably my favorite Spike Lee film.
I'm with you. It was my first Spike Lee film, and I will say it is still my favorite Spike Lee film after watching it. It's just it's so good. It's so interesting. And Spike Lee, we all know, is like so good at writing characters. He writes characters like TV shows write characters. You would think that the people who made BlacKkKlansman would be like a whole team of like 30 different writers. And same with Do the Right Thing that we talked about before. Same, like a team of 30 different writers that contributed everything. Meanwhile, it's coming from the mind of one man. Yeah. So it's just brilliant. But I just really like BlacKkKlansman. I like the setup. I like the tone, the music. oof,
That score, yeah.
delectable. I have it on vinyl. And it's just, I think overall it's a fantastic film and it's so enjoyable, but it's also very powerful as
Absolutely.
well.
Because, I mean, this stuff was real. And I think there are a lot of scenes in the movie that it like I said, it's very, like Stephanie said, it's very enjoyable, fun.
I'm sorry.
You.
Sorry.
It's
It's
okay.
allergy season.
No, I understand. But like Stephanie said, it's a very powerful film. You have your moments where you're laughing and it's fun and it's entertaining and there's great music. But then when the film needs to be serious, it does make you sit down and stare at pretty much the face of evil.
Yeah, and I almost think that this film has like this. It's almost like there's not many films that are on this level of absurdity. It's almost like the Camus of films, where it's like you have a black man who infiltrates the KKK. Already that's there, but with the language and all the plot twists and everything that happens, it's just entirely believable, entirely realistic, but just downright absurd.
But I mean, honestly, I think it's great that Spike Lee told this man's story because nobody, I mean, I'm assuming not a lot of people knew what this man did. So
No, like as soon as they were like, oh yeah, like I thought when I first heard the plot of this movie, I thought it was going to be like a satirical comedy. I was like, huh? But then when it's like in the beginning when it says Spike Lee always has like something in the intro, and this one says like, yo, this shit happened for real. I was like, what? And I looked it up, and it's entirely based, like majority of it is based on actual true events. I think the only thing that has been manipulated is timeline and the ending reveal. Those are the only things that have really been manipulated.
Yeah, for sure. But amazing story.
Absolutely. So let's dive into characters. Let's talk about our leading man, Ron Stallworth, played by John David Washington. What did you think about him, Savanna?
Great performance. Great film debut. We can all agree on that.
So this was his debut. I was going to say I never saw him in anything else until like then, and the only other thing that I know him or that he's going to be in is Tenet, which I'm excited for.
He was on a TV show for a bit, but I think this is definitely his film debut. And it's interesting. I didn't know he was Denzel's son until I heard his voice. He sounds just like his father.
Yeah, he does. And I'm sure maybe if like we saw him without the facial hair, he might look more like his dad. But I was like, huh. And then like I was looking through the trivia and I was like, oh, this is John David Washington, Denzel's son. I was like, what? That's so cool. And like, what a great, like you said, like his performance was his breakout role, and he came out strong.
Yeah.
Like completely strong from this. And I think he was also like here and there, like as a kid in some Spike Lee films. I believe he was in Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
But still, like for a leading role, strong performance. Incredible performance too.
Yeah, he's a very strong actor. I'm very excited to see him in Tenet, but he did a great job in the movie. He's very, very believable as this cop that's trying to change the system. And the movie, what I really like about his character, his tone is sort of set from the beginning. There's a scene where he's, having a job interview for, being a police officer. And one of the requirements of the job is being able to handle racial slurs.
Mm-hmm.
And his reaction just tells it all. He's just like, well, will that happen? And it sort of sets the tone of like, he's a little bit, I guess, too hopeful. He's very overachieving, very wants to get out there, make a change. And I think that scene sort of tells us all we need to know about the character from the beginning, and then his journey into being a cop. Like 5 minutes and being the police force, he's like, I want to go undercover. So I love that about the character for sure.
Hmm.
Very
And
ambitious.
one thing I noticed with comparing BlacKkKlansman to Do the Right Thing, these films, even though they're set similarly, like the BlacKkKlansman is set in the 70s and Do the Right Thing is set in the 80s. One thing I found similarly, and like keep in mind, like it's been 40 years since BlacKkKlansman and Do the Right Thing they came out. It's like a 40-year difference, maybe even 50-year difference. No, 40
Yeah.
year difference. But I like how Spike Lee tends to make his main characters mediators.
Yeah.
Tends to make
That's
these
that's
like
what it
people
is.
who see both sides. And because usually like in film, you see where the person who sees both sides is usually the sidekick friend that kind of, lets everyone see the world and how it's supposed to be. And that's how character development starts.
Right.
Is usually some side character going, hey, you should view it this way. But I like how we already established with BlacKkKlansman that that Ron Stallworth sees both sides of the coin. I mean, not only being a police officer, but being a black man. And I really enjoyed that insight that the film provides. Then from him being, starting off, leaning off, increasingly towards one side or the other. I really like these almost the medium ground that is established within his main characters.
Yeah, and I think his sort of growth throughout the film is great too. His character
Mhm.
development, I think, is by far one of the best alongside Adam Driver's character.
Absolutely. Adam was actually, this was his first nomination for an Oscar. He was nominated again for Marriage Story, but this was his first nomination. And I do think it is deserved. I think Adam Driver is a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
I love him in Girls, which is a show that we've been recently getting into. But I think he's a fantastic actor. And I love his characters. Like I like how it just shows that what's going on in the world in this universe of racism and everything like that isn't just a black only issue. And you see his Adam Driver's character Flip go through the same thing with the fact that he's Jewish and it was but he never really thought much about it until people started to downplay him for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, he has this great monologue about how, he never thought about it, never had a bar mitzvah, and he is white passing, so no one ever even thought he was Jewish. And then he has this great line where he's just like, I never really thought about it, and now I'm, denying it in a basement. And like how
Yeah.
powerful that really is, because you can finally see him struggling with the fact that he's like, wait, like, I am Jewish and I have to basically undermine myself with this whole thing.
Yeah, and I like that perspective. Me personally, I'm Spanish. And so I'm half Spanish though. So I kind of in a way relate to Flip like growing up because with being half Spanish, it was something, but I grew up in a white neighborhood and with more obviously I have Spanish family members and stuff like that, but my full upbringing was really more white than Hispanic. And I kind of like never really I relate to Flip in that way, and I liked that portrayal and seeing that in the movie. I thought it was a really great portrayal because obviously there are people who feel like that, and just because you feel like that, that doesn't mean that it's okay to have your race, your religion, whatever it may be, looked down upon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So with Adam Driver, let's talk about the other cops in the world. So you have the chief of police. There's that one. There's the one police officer with the mustache who kind of helps Ron Stallworth onto his police journey of infiltration and trying to get in with not only the Black Power groups, but within the KKK. And then you have this one police officer that you'll just hate, the one who's just so rude to Ron from the beginning. What did you think of all the characters on the police side?
Very good performances as well. The one that hates Ron, the racist one, his opening line in the film is "You're a cold fart." So sets that up pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he did a great job at portraying this blatantly racist cop and his sort of power trip. Because you see him in different scenes, like just full abuse of power.
Yeah, like he thinks he can say anything and do anything he wants. Why? Because he has a badge. And I also do like, the representation of the cops and all their different personalities. They weren't, each cop had different values, different things and stuff like that. Kind of like it vaguely reminds me of, the Pino, Vito, and Sal from Do the Right Thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's get into the dark side, the KKK side. Let's talk about those characters. Did any actor or character particularly stand out to you? Like, was there any character that you were like, love how they were written or loved how an actor portrayed them? What did you think of that
Oh,
side?
yeah. Felix? That's Psycho? Great job. Great job. Because I think that, obviously, there were more toned down characters. Like, I believe the other guy's name was Walter.
Mm-hmm.
Still a hateful person, still a little bit more toned down, but then there's Felix that's just all in it, saying a racial slur every 2 minutes, makes up plans, makes up these like pretty much attacks. And I think he sort of represents the heart of the KKK.
The extremist of that side, the full-hearted, like on their mind 24/7. And by the way, the guy who plays him is Finnish. He wasn't born in the US. He doesn't have an American accent, so apparently that's how he got the role, was that he started acting and stuff, and he came in with this accent and just did it. And then until Spike Lee said, "Where are you from?" And then he went back to his, his actual dialect, and Spike Lee was like, "What?" and hired and casted him right on the spot. And
That's
thought
awesome.
he was like, I totally agree with you. He was fantastic in a way where he was a good in terms of like acting, a good representation of that. He acted strong. He had that mindset, and it was disgusting but completely believable.
Yeah, no, you cringed every time he got on screen, but fantastic performance. I do want to talk about what I think is probably the best casting decision in the movie, though.
Okay, tell me.
Topher Grace.
I've loved that 70s show. So when I first found out he was going to be in this, that was not only wanting to see this movie for its plot, but that was a huge driving force to get me in the theater and see it.
What a choice, though.
I think it's such a good choice.
No, great choice.
I mean, it's not only like if you see like David Duke in real life, there is a little bit of a similarity. But I don't know, like it was something very seeing, Topher Grace as Eric Foreman on that 70s show, and then seeing him in the same time period, but on a completely different spectrum, I really enjoyed seeing. And plus, I've always thought he was a good actor, and I really didn't think shows like that, or even movies between then and now, didn't really showcase him as an actor until BlacKkKlansman.
Yeah, no, it's definitely the most surprising casting choice in my opinion, because I don't know about you, but if I were to thought like, okay, KKK later, I wouldn't automatically go to Topher Grace. So that's where the beauty is in it for me, because it's such a unique choice, but he sells it.
Especially someone with the label Grand Wizard. You think of some old geezer with a beard, wearing the white hoodie and everything at a time. And it's like, even though Topher Grace would have been one of the more realistic choices, there's still plenty of actors that they could have chose. But I do like, it's so hard, like in reality, to envision someone like Topher Grace being the Grand Wizard, leader, president, national director, whatever it was, of the KKK. And I really love that choice. And as soon as I saw him in the trailer, I remember I was like, oh my God. Because I always liked him on 70 Show.
Yeah.
And I was so happy to see him elsewhere, aside from Spider-Man.
Oh, I was about to say, that poor, no.
And I also liked, in terms of the KKK members, I liked the type, I like the spectrum of intelligence within the characters found within the KKK.
Yeah.
Like, I liked how you had Walter, played by Ryan Eggold, who was the strong-headed, wanted to be a leader, but, you know, still tame, still overall calm with everything going on. Felix was just, you know, the hothead. And then you had Paul Walter Hauser playing Ivanhoe, who was just kind of like this drunk, let's go along with it, you know, like the dumb laugh, like, like, let's do all that. And I liked the array of different characters that was presented in that side of the film.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a unique spectrum, and I loved it. There is a specific scene I want to talk about in the film, but before that, we should talk about, I think, Patrice. Her name is.
I liked the character Patrice. I thought Laura Harrier was a really, really good actress. I also liked the small character arc that she was given as well.
Mhm.
You know, because she is this almost not apprentice, but she's like an advisor for the Black Power movement. Like, she worked with, you know, Kwame Ture,
Yeah.
and how her opinion, like, obviously from the get-go, she's like, cops are pigs.
Yeah.
And it goes through, and she kind of has this small little healthy little character arc. What did you think of her?
I think she's super necessary because she is this very strong female character, which I love to see. But it also connects Ron in a way because he's sort of in the middle between that and the police force. And I think she's a good reminder of, like, okay, this is important too. Like, this is here. This is necessary. And sort of also has him see what it's really like, you know, outside of the police force.
Absolutely. And also, I do like not only her. So I wasn't expecting the character Connie when I first watched this film to be of any significance. But I'm happy you had two female representations of either side.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of movies like this, you don't really get a lot of female representation.
No.
So I was especially happy with Connie's side because it just showed that, you know, KKK members weren't all just, you know, old white men.
No.
They were also the old white men wives. So I liked her role in it. I thought she was a good actress too. And I thought it was really sad because here you have this character who just wants to appeal to her husband. And you can tell part of her opinion about the KKK, being a part of the KKK and about, you know, African Americans is solely stemmed on wanting the support of her husband and wanting to show to her husband that she can be, you know, like it almost like in terms of like a stance, she can be like a man. She can be treated like she can have an opinion. So what did you think of Connie?
No, I agree. I think it shows the diversity in the KK. It wasn't just old white man. You have the white man's family. And in my opinion, she was also the most hateful.
Yeah.
Aside from her husband.
Yeah, she really was. And I think it was, like I said, I think that was rooted in her trying to prove a point that in her own like way, her arc, her evil arc is trying to prove that she is more than a woman through her awful beliefs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's necessary.
I just thought that was a really, really interesting way. And obviously with things that happen in the end and what she does, I thought she was, even though her character wasn't necessarily, like we didn't take a deep dive into her character, I thought it was her presence was entirely necessary for a good part of the storyline, especially towards the end.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Another person I want to talk about, and this is, so in the beginning, after Ron Stallworth becomes a police officer, he infiltrates a Black Power speech at a college. And you have a man named Kwame Ture who is based off like Stokely Carmichael / Kwame Ture was a real life man, a real life advocate for the Black Power movement. And I absolutely adored the speech and the way the speech was filmed. Mm-hmm. I thought it was beautiful seeing all the different faces going in and out of like the pitch black background, just seeing like all the eyes gazing up at him and like showing like in their eyes like a glimmer of hope for them.
Absolutely.
I thought it was stunning. And I think one of the best, because I looked this up because I loved the lines. I could not tell if it was written by Spike Lee or if it was from Kwame Ture. I couldn't find if it was actually a quote from him. But if I am not for myself, who will I be? If I am not for myself alone, who am I? If not now, when? And if not you, who? I was like, oh, beautiful. Like,
a lot
so
of that
well-written.
speech was just beautiful. And I love the part where he was talking about, like, African-American beauty standards. He says, beauty is not, a slim nose, a light, a fair complexion, because you don't have that. And you are beautiful. And I was just like, I love that. I love that so much. I think that speech was totally empowering and amazing, especially for that time period too.
Absolutely. And I think it was just so well written. Like, obviously you and me, we support a speech like that naturally, but it was just so beautiful and well done. Like, it almost like it had this sense that you were there with the audience watching this and you felt, at least you and me, I know for sure, felt moved.
Yeah.
And I loved the character, of the small character of Kwame Ture. And I liked the added bonus of when Kwame Ture is leaving, the small little scene that we see of Kwame and Patrice being pulled over by the one cop. And we know which cop it is.
Right,
but
of course.
Ron doesn't know. Oh my God, my parents are listening to something really loud. I apologize.
It's okay. I couldn't hear. No worries. No worries.
Okay, because I literally go, hey guys, I'm recording. And they're like, cool. And they raise like the TV up to like 100 max. Like, I'm like, oh my God. So, but yeah, let's talk about the actual process of Ron Stallworth infiltrating. How iconic was the scene when he just picks up the phone, talks to the KKK, and he is just saying all the most horrible slurs imaginable.
Yeah. Iconic.
And everyone just turns around and looks at him like he's insane. And then the realization occurs that he accidentally uses his real name.
Legend. Amazing.
And this is where I mean, like, absurdity plays into it. Like, the fact that we got to see a character like Ron Stallworth just completely infiltrate the KKK and, like, say those things. I remember my jaw dropping while watching the film. Because I obviously, you expect to hear that from the KKK members of the movie, but I wasn't expecting the film to lead in with that, and that's how they get infiltrated with the KKK.
It's amazing, too, because he just brought that on himself. Like, it was not an assignment. He just decided one day he was going to call and do that.
Yeah, he just saw a little ad in the newspaper and was like, why not? And then it became an even bigger thing. I love that scene so much. Were there any like scenes in the middle or the scenes where, Flip and Ron kind of become one? Was there any notable scenes that you wanted to discuss? Anything you really enjoyed?
Yeah, I mean, there's one specific scene, but I think we're both on the same page with that. We know what scene that is. I love the scene where I think one of the most like beautiful, like aesthetically pleasing scene is when he meets Patrice and they go to a party. And everyone's just dancing. I love that scene. The music's great. The color use and that is awesome as well. The scene we talked about where Flip sort of acknowledges his heritage and himself. Awesome scene. Let me think.
You know what cameo I really appreciated?
What?
I loved Alec Baldwin in the beginning.
Oh,
I'm a huge
wow.
30 Rock fan. I am a huge 30 Rock fan. It is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And I liked how it was almost like outtakes for a KKK message. So when I was watching it the first time and even revisiting, I totally forgot it was more like outtakes. So you see him like messing up and then like saying something foul and then like, you know, going, like in frustration, like just messing up. I like the fact that it was filmed more like an outtake than like a regular speech, because it allowed you to then take it more as like something funny than something serious.
Well, also in that scene, I believe there is sort of this head nod to a film.
And what film what film are you talking about?
I think it's meant to be Gone with the Wind. Do you remember that?
Yeah, well, in the beginning, it starts off with, isn't that, I'm gonna be real with you guys, I've never seen Gone with the Wind.
No,
Please
no,
don't roast me. Please.
I only seen it once.
I think that's Gone with the Wind in the beginning.
It's either Gone with the Wind or it's supposed to be Gone with the Wind. And I think that's important.
Wait, hold on. What did you just say?
It's supposed to, I don't know if it's an actual scene from Gone with the Wind, but there's a similar scene in Gone with the Wind, is what I'm saying. I don't know if it's the actual from the movie or they recreated it. I'm pretty sure they recreated it because there's a similar scene in the movie. But the reason I bring it up is because I think it's important. It's very important because of the subject matter of Gone with the Wind, the background of it.
Yeah. And so not only does this film talk about Gone with the Wind, well, you know, it gives a nod to Gone with the Wind in the beginning. I do believe, from my interpretation, like I said, I haven't seen Gone with the Wind, and I know people are like,
but it's a 4-hour film. You know, that's a chunk.
Film.
That's a chunk. So
I think people either like there's always this road in people's lives. It's like, at one point you have to choose between Gone with the Wind or Godfather. I don't know how people get to this point, but I was once presented, it was like, what do you want to watch? Gone with the Wind or Godfather? And me being the Marlon Brando buff, I went with Godfather.
Who would pick Gone with the Wind? Gone with the Wind obviously has a lot of cultural significance and performances, but who would pick Gone with the Wind in that situation? I would never.
I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I would pick Godfather 10 out of 10, but I always feel like, and there was a TV show episode that kind of talked about that too. Like everyone kind of either goes through, it was Rules of Engagement. There's an episode where they go, are you going to pick Gone with the Wind or Godfather? Those are like the two classics people always decide between. But Godfather.
Godfather all the way. Sorry. You could take that movie and put it somewhere because it does, with, you know, obviously the iconic Hattie McDaniel, first African American to win an Oscar, but it's racist.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we're going to be discussing today, last time when we spoke about Do the Right Thing, we talked about the current climate. I wanted to shift a little bit of view, and I want to talk about the view of a particular movie. So in this film, one movie that is shown a lot in sequence, and during when Adam Driver's character, when he's portraying the fake Ron Stallworth, and he's inducted into the KKK, they show a film called Birth of a Nation. And I myself, when I was 16 doing dual enrollment and I took a film course, I was made to watch that movie and discuss about its filming techniques. Now, by any chance, if you've never seen BlacKkKlansman or if you've never seen Birth of a Nation, it is a KKK film. It is by a first pioneering director named D.W. Griffith, who has, you know, a lot of film techniques under his name. But the purpose of that film was to reunite and reform the KKK in 1915. Now, Savanna, I've already told you my opinion. Have you seen Birth of a Nation?
Never seen the movie. Don't plan on it either.
You ever?
No. Why? Why would I ever see that movie? You know, and you know, honestly, people have asked me before. Genuinely, people have asked me that question.
Really?
And usually it's people that are taking a film course, or people that have taken a film course or are doing something with movies.
Yeah.
And they have asked me, well, you have to watch Birth of a Nation because of this, and that. And I'm like, no. No,
No.
there's never a reason for you to watch that movie. I'm just gonna say it. No
So
reason.
Birth of a Nation not only kind of hits hard with me and Savannah, but it does hit hard with Spike Lee. Fun fact, Spike Lee, while attending NYU, was shown Birth of a Nation, and they did not talk about its racism. They did not talk about any, and for those who you don't know, there's the use of blackface. You see lynchings, and it actually promotes lynchings. It promotes the KKK. And I'm sorry, aside from maybe a few filming pioneering techniques, this film has nothing good to give in the world. It is a piece of history. I think it should be learned about, but I don't think it should be shown. I think it's a choice. And it's still like when I told Savannah at 16, I was made to watch that movie where I saw the lynchings in the background and I was told about blah, blah, blah. And I still had to write an essay on like the pioneering techniques about it. She was shocked. And that was like 2 years before BlacKkKlansman came out. So when Spike Lee was outraged, he made a short film in college titled The Answer. And it's about a black screenwriter being paid $50 million to remake Birth of a Nation. And because of his short film, he was nearly expelled. And the only reason why he was able to stay was because of a faculty vote, was because he won over the vote of the faculty to keep him in. How insane is that?
Just from the little snippets you do see in BlacKkKlansman, I can't imagine getting through that whole film and not saying anything about
I do
the
remember
content.
going off a little bit in, my essay and saying like pretty much saying like at the end of the day, like these techniques and stuff like that that doesn't mean it still holds a place. You know what I mean? You can still learn about it, but don't praise it. Don't praise it for its techniques. Don't do that because there's nothing good about this film in terms of its message. You can look at it and say, yeah, it's filmed well. Oh my God, yeah, it is filmed well. But the message and the actual brutality that happened on set, I mean, come on, you had scenes where you had black actors in the background, but then when it came for speaking roles, which there was no audio, so when it came for like the little title cards to say their lines, they couldn't even have a black actor portray themselves. They had white men in blackface to do that. They only showed black people in the background. Anyone else any black characters that had a speaking part were played by white men.
I believe even the children were in blackface.
Yes, even the children were in blackface, and I think everyone can learn something from this film, but that doesn't mean you have to say, hey, like, for example, the Birth of a Nation is known for its use of flashbacks. But guess what? It was the first time like a flashback was used. So instead of saying, oh, here was a flashback, showing it, highlighting it, and praising D.W. Griffith, I think we should say, yes, this film, it's a horrible film. It used flashback. But guess what? Another movie named Hiroshima Mon Amour used flashbacks in regards to memory. And it was the first time a movie showed flashbacks in regards to memory and in regards to telling someone's past. So I think that's the way we should be presenting, especially a film like this. Obviously, there's other horrible films like Solo and things like that can still be talked about because at the end of the day, we can learn from it. But there's not really a lot you can learn from Birth of a Nation. Like, let's be completely honest here.
Birth of a Nation, the only way it should be taught and talked about is in regards of how disgusting and inhumane it is and what a stain it is on cinematic history.
Yeah.
That is what it should be talked about. Not, and like Stephanie said, there are other movies that you could talk about in terms of flashback or whatever. I'm sure you can find another movie. You don't need to talk about Birth
and there's
of a
so
Nation.
many other silent films that you can look at. Look at films like Metropolis. Look at A Trip to the Moon. Look at the original Alice in Wonderland. If you want to see pioneering techniques and stuff like that, they all came out in similar years. Go look at them. But please, why do we have to keep talking about D.W. Griffith and Birth of a Nation? It's like that should be closed. Put a little bookmark in it, closed, chapters done with Birth of a Nation. And the fact that it is still most likely shown today in plenty of places. Plenty of places. I think even Los Angeles and New York City. Some city wanted to have like a like for its anniversary, I think for its 100-year anniversary in 2015, someone wanted to reshow the movie. And because of that, Los Angeles, NYC, and other places have banned it. And this movie is still banned in multiple countries. And I do agree with that. I don't agree with every banned film in every banned country or, in every country. But this one, it does not give any purpose to film history.
It's harmful.
It literally is a stain, like you said.
I mean, Spike Lee did something fantastic in this movie with it.
Mm-hmm.
The best scene in this film is the parallel of the KKK induction and Birth of a Nation and the story that this older Black man is giving.
Yeah.
About the murder of a young, I think he was mentally handicapped Black, I think boy, I want to say, because he was like a teenager. And one of the things that scene speaks loud and clear that Birth of a Nation is not just a movie, it's living history. Birth of a Nation is not harmless. It's not harmless. It happened.
Yeah. It happened, and it's not told from a autobiographical or biographical standpoint. It's told in terms of propaganda, in terms of bringing back something horrid. And guess what? It was successful at bringing back something horrid. That is the power of cinema at its evil core, at its evil core. Obviously, everything else about cinema is beautiful and wonderful, and I praise it. But that is the ugliest side of cinema you can ever see, which is what that did. And fun fact, there was a sequel to Birth of a Nation.
Oh, I did not know that.
That came out the year before. I didn't know it either until I looked it up. But guess what? The sequel cannot be found, and it's called Fall of a Nation. So no one knows what it's about. They just found pretty much like a reel that said, Fall of a Nation, D.W. Griffith, 1916. But the film is nowhere to be found.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
Like, considering what the content of the first one.
I mean, I can't even imagine what the second one, if it's Fall, I could imagine what they could encipher, especially if it was about, the KKK, and what would the fall of the KKK look like? What would their worst nightmare look like? And it would just be, once again, another ugly film, another ugly stain in cinematic history.
Yeah.
Which I just, as soon as I was like, no way. David Duke probably has it in his basement. He probably has that shit in his basement.
Oh, no, he definitely has a copy.
He has a copy of it. That's where the conspiracy theory, the copy of Fall of a Nation is held by a KKK member. Or, I mean, and by all means, don't release it. Keep it to yourself. Keep it with you. Keep it your secret, please. Do not leak it. But I just wish, in terms of, if we're going to talk about Birth of a Nation, we gotta say also, like, hey, here's this film, Birth of a Nation. Also, here's director Spike Lee and his prolific short film, The Answer, that talks about it, blah, 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 and go into that conversation. Don't just talk about Birth of a Nation and leave it as, and just be like, it is what it is. It was the 1950s. No.
No, that doesn't, I don't care. I don't care when any racist film was made. It's racist, harmful, disgusting, a stain, and inhumane. If someone comes at you and said, well, it was 1915, just no. Don't even engage, because that's already saying a lot.
Yeah, no. But it's like, look, BlacKkKlansman came out in 2018. 100 years later, this film is still being talked about. It's not like, oh, well, no one's seen that film. No. I saw it. I was forced to watch it when I was 16.
Which is
Many
really
other people,
sad.
I'm sure, were forced to watch it too. Other film people, because it's just like, oh look, it's a flashback. It's like, dude, come on. Like, that's not worth seeing people lynched in the background, seeing disturbing blackface is not worth learning where a flashback came from. It's not, in my opinion. And I think the agenda of how film schools, film courses, things like that, how they talk about birth of a nation, because I don't think we should erase history. I think we should address it properly. And the way it should be is, hey, here's a film. It invented flashback, but it's gross. It sucks. And here's another cool film that, outdid his work. Check out Hiroshima Mon Amour. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there are
Or
other films you could use for whatever they're talking about in Birth of a Nation. You said techniques and stuff. I think they can find that in other movies. You don't need to talk about it in Birth of a Nation.
and you can just simply say it.
Yeah,
You don't need to show it. You don't need to say, like, you obviously say, like, hey, this has a bad history, this, inside of the KKK, like, do things like that, but you don't have to glorify D.W. Griffith. Like, you don't have to be like, look, a flashback. It's like someone would have come up with it eventually. Come on.
I think I'm gonna say I don't feel like it's controversial actually. If you or anybody still shows this film, it really is a slap in the face to the people that this harms, African Americans. It really is. If anybody tries to give me an excuse about, oh, well, flashbacks and techniques, it is a slap in the face and definitely does not need to be shown.
Absolutely. And the only way I could imagine anyone re-showing scenes from that is through this movie BlacKkKlansman.
Yes.
Where it is meant to highlight the disgusting nature of that movie. And to show that the people who were a part of the KKK, how even still then in the 70s, like 60 years later, they praised it. And I'm probably sure 100 years later, people are still praising it. And I think that's also a stain not only Black cinema history, but on cinematic history in general. But that's my little soapbox. I got my little soapbox, little speech.
No, I think it's important because it's a really big deal. Especially it's in one of probably the most significant scenes in the movie too. So we definitely need to talk about Birth of a Nation.
For sure. And keep in mind I don't have any comments to say about the 2016, I believe it was, Birth of a Nation. It has the same title, but it's different. It's about Nat Turner. I personally don't know much about that. I just know that it is not directly involved with the OG Birth of a Nation. So I'm not saying like don't watch that. I don't have any comments for that. I just have comments for the original 1915 Birth of a Nation. So if you're like, wait a minute, I like the one with Armie Hammer, I'm not talking about that one.
No. Yeah.
But I do think in terms of from what I've learned in film courses, that there needs to be a reform on how we talk about Black cinematic history.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, why does this film need to be brought up? Why does the freaking Birth of a Nation need to be brought up when we're learning about film history in general, let alone Black film history?
It does not need to be brought up.
It doesn't. And I hope as time goes on with everything going on that we can properly not only show, Black cinematic history, but Spanish cinema, all different European cinemas. I hope we can start learning more how to educate better film students and film, techniques and stuff like that to students through a better message. Yeah. Not just saying like, hey, check, the first thing you're going to learn about is Tom Edison, the Lumiere brothers, and Birth of a Nation. Like, no, you can scratch out one of the three.
At least, yeah.
At least. It's like, why not talk about A Horse in Motion, the first film ever made that is 18 seconds long, and it's literally just a horse walking. Let's talk about that. That's a pioneer. It's a horse. We could talk about that, but don't talk about Birth of a Nation.
No, definitely not. And I agree with Stephanie. There needs to be more more communication on diversity in films from Black filmmakers, Spanish filmmakers, Asian filmmakers. We need to talk about it more. But
Absolutely.
I don't think
Absolutely.
putting Birth of a Nation out there.
No. But at least we have, companies like the Criterion Collection that properly showcase history, cinematic history. And even like whether it's through the Criterion Collection or through the Criterion Channel, which is not, by the way, not a sponsor, but absolutely should be.
Please.
But I've learned so much through the Criterion Collection. For if anyone who's listening, like, okay, if I don't want to go textbook, but I want to learn about film history, where should I go? Absolutely go through places like the Criterion Collection, where literally everything is handled with care, with affection, and with, everything is selected for the best education in regards to film history.
Yeah, definitely. We love you, Criterion.
Mm-hmm. We love you. All right. Let's talk about. So, all right, that's it with Birth of a Nation. Let's talk about the ending to BlacKkKlansman. I loved the ending. I thought it was very riveting. I was not expecting it the way it to end. Felix got what he deserved.
Good.
And the scene with the red car and the blow up and everything like that. And I also I liked the turmoil that was added, and also once again the reflection in today's society where Ron Stallworth is trying to arrest Connie, and police officers come who don't know him and they don't believe that he's an undercover cop.
Right.
And then as soon as Adam Driver comes along, he's like, "Get off him! He's an undercover cop." Everyone's like, "Huh? What?
Like he's a cop?"
Huh?
Yeah.
But I did like the message I did show, because obviously at that time period it would have been realistic. And even sadly today, as we talked about on Do the Right Thing, it still is pretty realistic. But I in terms of in regards to the story, I like that it added that twist, that you not necessarily a twist, but that suspense where you're like, oh, what's gonna happen next?
For sure.
Is there any other key moments or any key points in the film that you want to talk about aside from that ending?
There was something said very briefly in the film that I think relates to a lot right now, and I'm not going to elaborate on it too much, but I do think it definitely needs to be said. Mm-hmm. There's a part where Adam Driver, Ron Stallworth, and then the other guy, forget his name in the movie, but it's the three of them, they're in a room, they're talking about, I think it was
Buscemi's brother.
Buscemi's brother?
Steve Buscemi's brother.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I forgot his first name, but okay, keep talking. I'm going to get the first name.
Okay. They're talking, I believe it was about police officers, and Adam Driver does say, we're like a family, so right or wrong, we stick together. And I believe Ron Stallworth says, well, then that kind of sounds like another group, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. And I believe that has a lot of significance for what's going on right now. I'm not trying to make a statement, but what I am saying is that the silence of good, honest police officers is why things have not changed. And the film makes an important statement about that, even if it's in passing. And it just relates hard right now.
Today, we're filming this on the 5th of June, and the first thing to have circulated in the media in terms of news today is an elderly man being knocked over by police. He falls back, hits his head, blood starts coming out of his ears, and when one police officer goes to reach for him, another one checks him back in line, and that old man is left on the floor. And I think watching how even that reminded me of what I saw in the news today. Because I was finishing that scene in the morning and I had saw the actual news footage of that elderly man today. And it just kind of reminded me of that. You see what is wrong in front of you and you'll still abide back, kind of like with regular family. With family, sometimes we fall into this trap of it doesn't matter if they do something horrible, they're your family and you have to abide by them.
No.
And even I think not only this movie but that example, that poor elderly man in the news this morning was the sheer example of that.
Absolutely.
The fact that, and it's always what they say, like, you know, the expression of like, oh, like they're just a couple of bad apples, you know, that, oh, there's only a couple of bad apple cops and stuff like that. But in that scene, there's probably 30 plus cops. This elderly man falls, is pushed over and falls. And immediately, like I said, you can see the blood coming out of his ear. You can see that he was hurt. And not one cop tried to help him.
No.
And only one, but then he was put in line. And then because of that, anyone who kind of leaned towards him was once again put in line. And that is in reflective of what Ron Stallworth says, like, it does sound like another group. So
very powerful. Very powerful statements.
Yeah, especially, and once again, that film came out 2 years ago, still relevant. And the time period came out, like the time period was over 50 years ago.
It was in the 70s, yeah.
Yeah, it was in the early 70s the film was set. And it is still, and even though based on true story, like it was mostly took place in the late 70s, it's still almost 50 years. It's still almost 50 years. And even, you know, the hatred that you see in the film is still very much loud and expressed today. And I'm really happy we chose both of these two films to discuss with Spike Lee Week. I think we couldn't have picked two better films from him that are as reflective as these two, with Do the Right Thing showing the current nature and what hasn't changed, and BlacKkKlansman essentially showing why it hasn't changed because of people who express hate to that level.
Yes. Definitely.
Now, one of the things directorially, I want to say, there's a part in the end where Patrice and Ron open, they hear something, and you have that, I call it this, I don't know what the actual scene or the film technique is called by Spike Lee. I call it the skateboard. It's because you have both Ron Stallworth and Patrice, and it looks like they have their guns out and they're being pulled into the camera as if on skateboards. That's why I call it the little skateboard shots. I love that scene, and I love that technique, because we did see that technique in Do the Right Thing, but I think it's my favorite execution of the technique in BlacKkKlansman.
Yeah, great. Awesome.
And although BlacKkKlansman wasn't as more experimental in angles as like Do the Right Thing, I do think it is still incredibly well directed.
I agree. Definitely. And then there's the ending of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where?
So do you wanna summarize what the last bit of the movie is, Savanna?
The end of the movie are basically clips of several, I want to say, protests are the word, or gatherings of Klan members, of just regular people, like racist people, saying things against Jewish people, Black people, clips of police brutality, and then David Duke. And wow.
Yeah. And one of the most horrific scenes of that little montage in the end is the Dodge Challenger, the green Dodge Challenger, driving into the crowd.
Yeah.
And it sucks because, like, I remember I was telling my boyfriend at one time, like, oh, because I used to want like a Challenger or a Charger. And he was like, oh, a crowd killer. And I'm like, what? And this was before any of that happened. And he was like, yeah, like a lot of people, like a lot of hatred people they will drive those type of cars into crowds. And I was just like, what? And then when I saw this movie and I saw that footage and that poor woman who was killed from that car, from being run over by just some maniac in a fast car just driving through people, was absolutely insane.
Yeah. Very sad.
but I respect Spike Lee a lot for showing that in the end, because it shows us, like, I remember, and I have chills, I have goosebumps now, but I had goosebumps when I first originally watched it, because I thought in the movie in 2018 when this came out, I was like, wow, we're lucky to be past that. And then I saw in the end that we weren't.
No.
Like, freshly, we weren't. Like, I think the events that had happened in the montage in the end only occurred like 6 months prior, before the movie's release.
No, yeah. I mean, there's a lot that the sequence show. There's even, I think, a line of people screaming at one point, "Jews will not replace us." And you're just sitting there and you're just like, oh my God. And then there's a clip of David Duke still around talking.
Yeah.
70 years old. Like, who's listening to him? I'm sorry, but like, oh my God.
And fun fact, one of the real life Ron Stallworth, one of his biggest regrets in life was apparently, so in reality, when he reveals himself to, in the movie, when Ron Stallworth reveals himself, you know, who he really is to David Duke, in reality, that didn't happen. David Duke didn't find out until Ron Stallworth made the autobiography about him in like 2013, maybe 2012.
Oh my God.
And that's how he found out. And one of Ron Stallworth's regret is wishing that he would have been more outspoken and would have told David and would have made it public. So that way, maybe, possibly, he would have been taken down by his own embarrassment.
Yeah.
So that was something that I thought. And by the way, Ron Stallworth still has his KKK card ID on him, because he says that if he were to pass away and someone find his wallet, he would just want to see like their reaction, like, what? Like,
that's great.
But it's a crazy story, but it's definitely a story worth being told over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It's very good. And it's so crazy. Like, at the time when I first watched this, with the upside down black and white American flag, that's to show that like America is in distress, that America needs help, that there's something wrong, like a civil issue going on. At first I didn't understand it. And now today I see it everywhere.
Yes.
I see it everywhere in the news, on social media, everywhere. And it's crazy how things change so quickly. Like, at a time, I remember us thinking, like, you know, I can be honest. I remember thinking, like, was that flag necessary at the time? And yeah, it was absolutely necessary at the time. I just didn't understand it like I do now.
Yeah, I think it's very necessary, especially now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, Savanna, what do you rate BlacKkKlansman?
10.
I would say, so look, I do think Do the Right Thing. If I were to change my thing, I would give Do the Right Thing a 9.9 and then BlacKkKlansman a 10 out of 10. Or 9.9 out of 10 and then 10 out of 10 for BlacKkKlansman. Just because I do enjoy the story more of BlacKkKlansman, but it's just more so my personal favorite. I like the style, I like the characters, I like the acting, and I like the comedy in it. But I think that just shows, like, easily, because we're usually pretty strict when it comes to giving out 10 out of 10.
We are.
And the fact that in just 1 week we have 2 Spike Lee films that got 10 out of 10 just shows how much of a prolific director and writer that he is. And even actor, too. He's a very good actor as well.
Yeah, very, very, very good. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we'll be reviewing more Spike Lee films in the future.
Absolutely. I've never seen Malcolm X. I've always wanted to see Malcolm X before. So I'll add it to the list. Don't worry. But yeah, Savanna, is there anything that you want to say? Is there anything you want to talk about before we sign off?
No, I think our message is very clear on this podcast. We are pro Black Lives Matter, just to put it out there again. And we support the movement, and we support Black creators and Black cinema, and we want to promote it.
Absolutely. And we also want it to be promoted in the best light, in the light that it deserves.
Yes.
So I don't know. At the end of the day, not only do I hope that you enjoyed our BlacKkKlansman review, but I hope from this, maybe someone can perceive Birth of a Nation just a little bit differently
I hope so.
and perceive, Black cinema the way it should be perceived, as an achievement, as a celebration, not with a preface of the stain of Birth of a Nation or a gloomy cloud that it is over it. But we hope you guys sincerely enjoyed what we had to say. Next time you'll hear from us, we're going to be discussing, next week, we'll have 2 films. We're going to be talking about 12 Angry Men, and we do have a little surprise guest star for that. And then Sunday's episode is my birthday episode.
Woo!
And so all I'm going to say is we're going to be discussing John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oof.
And I'm ready, and I'm more than ready than ever for that. And then the following week after that, it will be Steve McQueen week. So yeah, a lot of stuff looking forward to. A lot of different picks. We're going from Spike Lee to 12 Angry Men to John Carpenter to Steve McQueen. Like, we're gonna be jumping around, but it's gonna be a good schedule for the month of June.
Absolutely. Shout out to James, by the way, before we forget.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God, we're so James. Oh my God, James, buddy, we forgot. Sorry, we had a little powerful ending the last episode, but homeboy James, thank you so much for all your support. And if you're like, what? I want to be a homeboy. Well, then you should check out our Patreon.
Yeah.
And also, like I've always said, like, you can also, in ways to support Purple Noon and get that little shout out. Why don't you let me know if you bought my short story, and I'll give you that little shout out too. Just a little morsel of goodness. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, tuning in, whatever it may be. Stay safe, be healthy, and we will talk to you guys next time. Bye.
Bye.